Okay, this is my warning section, and one of my first warnings is about real estate agents, including me. Now, you may choose to work with real estate agents, you may not. My advice is to do it because they have contacts with a lot of buyers, so I think you should work with them. Now, one of the things a real estate agent needs to tell you, now he doesn't really have to tell you this until the first face-to-face meeting, but I'm going to tell you this right now. And it has to do with confidentiality. If you tell me something, and by the way, if we meet face to face, I'm going to give you a little form saying, basically, that I do not represent you. With confidentiality, we get into a problem. I can't say, oh, I'm going to keep this in confidence, and you can't expect me to do that, because if you tell me something that would be of value to a buyer, if I bring him to the property, I have to disclose it. For example, you're selling a house for $400,000 and you say, well, you know something, I'd really settle for $380,000. Well, if I bring a buyer, I have to tell him that. I do not have the option to keep it to myself. If I do that, if I or an agent says to you, well, you can tell me this, I'll keep this confidential, he is now implying himself as a seller's agent, because that's one of the tests, if you represent somebody, is confidentiality. So if I say that to you, I am now implying myself as a seller's agent. Now I bring a buyer to the property, of course I don't tell him that, and I become an undisclosed dual agent. And that's big problems for me, my license, and my broker. So every agent should inform you this before he meets you, and when he meets you, he has to do this, and you have to, he presents the form, you don't have to sign it though. Okay, so once again, don't ask an agent that doesn't represent you to keep anything confidential, because he can't. Now, if a buyer approaches you directly, they may or may not be represented by a real estate agent, and you should ask them. Now, you don't have to. You can just go right ahead and negotiate with them, but here's what might happen. When a buyer signs a contract with a real estate agent, the contract says that if they buy property within that time period, they owe the real estate agent a commission, even if they go ahead and do it themselves. So you could get yourself into the position of negotiating with a buyer, then all of a sudden they bring up the agent, or the agent gets wind of it and informs them that they're going to owe him a commission anyway. And the buyer may now decide to back out. So make sure you know if they're being represented by an agent, because if they are, you really should be negotiating with the agent, not the buyers. And believe me, it would be in your best interest to negotiate with the agent, because the agent wants deals to go forth. If his buyer wants that property, he's going to negotiate to try to get that property for the buyer. So once again, when a buyer approaches you, you should ask them, you don't have to, but are you represented by an agent? It might avoid some headaches later on in the deal. Okay, now you've probably put your house on Zillow and some others. Now, one of the warnings I'm going to give about Zillow is when you put it on, underneath they will put a zestimate of what they think it's worth. Now, a few years ago, I was looking at the for sale by owners, and I saw one. The owner wanted, I think, $650,000 for it. And right below, Zillow estimated it to be $350,000. Now, how many people do you think called that seller and offered him $650,000? Well, probably none, because it didn't sell. Another thing you want to take a look at with Zillow, and matter of fact, all the others, real estate agents pay Zillow, Trulia, and the others to put their names and contact information on them. Now, I usually look over the for sale by owners for two reasons. One, if they decide they want to sell, I ask them to consider me, but also, I'm one of the few agents that keeps a list of for sale by owners for my buyers. Now, most agents don't do that. The MLS contract, when you sign with a buyer, the agent's only responsible to let them know about the properties that are on the MLS. The agent can't be expected to read every single classified section in every single real estate ad. So that's the only ones they're responsible for. And a lot of agents look at for sale bonus as competitors, kind of like the enemy. I don't. If I've got a buyer and somebody's got a house to sell, I want to bring them together. But what's going to happen is, and this happened to me, the first contact information is not the sale by owner, it's a real estate agent. So when I put my contact information in, I got a call from a real estate agent, and I had to explain, you know, that's what I was doing. And they said, oh, that's understandable, I do it too. So sometimes it's hard for them to contact you directly. So keep that in mind when you advertise on these sites. Another big warning is full disclosure. That means anything that you know that is wrong with your property, you have to disclose to the seller. If you don't, they can come back and sue you. I advise that you fill out a seller's statement, and if you don't have any, I'll send you one. It goes through a procedure in which you answer questions about what may or may not be wrong with your house. There was a case several years ago that I read about, and what happened was people bought the house, they moved in, and they started having a lot of problems with the drain. It kept clogging up, and they had to have Roto-Rooter people come out several times and clear it out. And they suspected that the seller might have had trouble too. And what they did, they started contacting drain cleaning contractors within miles and miles radius. And they finally found one that had visited that property several times in the year before it sold. Well, they sued the real estate agent, but the real estate agent had no way of knowing this, and so they eventually got an award against the seller. So it is in your best interest to disclose everything you know about the property that may be of concern and that may affect the value of the property. Honesty is the best policy. Okay, now this is my final warning for this video. I mean, I could go on for hours. Over 20 years experience, I've seen a lot of things go wrong. So my final warning, I'm going to let you know about accepting an offer. Now, this has happened to me several times, and it may happen to you. Buyer comes in, and they give you an offer. It's right on the price you want, maybe even more. But there's a clause that said they need to sell their home before they buy this property. Well, of course, if you accept that, your property is tied up for months, maybe years, until they decide to sell their property. So, you could just reject them out flat. But one of the things a real estate agent tries to do, he always tries to keep people on the string, in the funnel. So what I've done in the past is, and now this is only for a house that's been on the market for a while and you're not getting a lot of offers. You accept it, and for the wording of this, I want you to turn to your lawyer, not me, but you're going to have some kind of a clause in there that in effect is going to say that at any time, the seller can notify the buyer and give them 24 hours for specific performance of the contract, meaning they will have to buy it, they will have to put in their deposits within 24 hours. I usually give them 48. It takes that long, really, to accept an offer. And what it does is it keeps these people kind of on the hook, in touch. They actually call in. Normally I check with them, but they'll even call in with me, ask me how things are going. And I have brought one, took me maybe 6 months. But they finally bought it. So if you decide to do this, once again, contact your lawyer about the wording in this. But you always want to try to keep a line open to someone that may be interested in your property. So I hope this has been helpful to you.